Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's another Wednesday. It's another Wednesday. So it's got to be another Wednesday or another weekly tech forum. This week we have Paul Offord coming back as a host and doing a presentation. Coincidentally, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Paul's company, right, Paul?
Yeah, this August it will be 25 years.
So if I did my math right, you started the company when you were 12, right?
I wish. I was 31. Yeah, I was 31.
No, that's too much information. We don't need that. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. How's everybody this beautiful morning?
Yeah, good. Paul, Tim doesn't do math anymore. All right, he ran out of digits. Yeah.
I do want to note that officially, the first identification of smart TVs being hacked has come out with all the InfraGard and alerts that go out there. So if you got a smart TV, it probably is hacked.
Oh.
You need to cover up. Yeah, cover up your camera because you don't know who's watching.
Yeah, well, that actually we should cover all the cameras everywhere. I mean, it's amazing. It's actually amazing how many cameras we have
and
around the house. Yeah, and microphones we have around the house. So, so with that, maybe we should just go ahead and do the presentation, Paul, and then maybe open up for some questions.
Yeah, sounds good. So let me just share.
And tell us what you're going to talk about first.
Yeah. Good point. I'm going to just tell you briefly about the way Advanced 7 troubleshoots problems, which is sometimes different to the way other people do it, and I'm going to explain why we do it the way we do it. So
you do that. Yeah, you do that to maximize revenue or just minimize pain. What's your criteria?
It's to really make sure that we deliver results. That's what it comes down to, and I'll explain it in the presentation.
Perfect.
We can get onto the commercial stuff afterwards. The bizarre thing for Advanced 7, of course, is the better we get at fixing problems, the lower our fee revenue. Mm-hmm. It's great. What a business model, eh?
Yeah.
You know, the better we get, the lower the fee. Brilliant. That's now you know why I was 31 when I started this thing, because I was naive.
And now we know why you're here.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So let's start this presentation. I hope you guys can see that. I think you can.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So the issue that we set out to challenge was this whole concept of recurring grey problems. So a recurring grey problem, the first thing is it's a problem, and so in this case what we're talking about is the user's experience of a performance issue, some form of error, or incorrect output. It's grey because we don't know which technology is causing the problem. So we have an end-to-end system made up of lots of components, desktop, servers, network, everything, and we don't know which one of these components is actually causing the problem. And recurring, of course, just means it keeps happening. So customers came to us initially to deal with these types of problems where they kept getting issues and they were struggling to resolve them. So, of course, normally in dealing with these types of issues, they'd go through some form of functional escalation process. The different tiers of support would look at the problem, but, of course, they'd typically be looking within one technology tower. Some judgment would have been made at an early stage which technology is causing the problem, and then it would pass up through the support organisation for that technology. The question came, what happens when you get to the end of the road here and you don't know what to do next? Now, the way customers typically respond to that is that they analyse the changes that they've made, which is quite understandable and definitely a good thing to do. Then they tap into the knowledge of the people. They then start to rely on experience and anecdote, sometimes fed to them by suppliers, sometimes from within the organisation, even down to gut feel. Now, these last 2 points, experience and gut feel, are a bit subject to suffering from biases, which is a subject that's been written about quite extensively by a guy called Daniel Kahneman. In fact, he won a Nobel Prize for the work he did on this. So it's worth looking at his book if you're interested in biases. Then they start to move into a pattern-based type analysis, which is we get the problem in Munich on a Friday morning with Windows 7 machines. It's got to be an issue with Windows 7 or Munich or Friday mornings. So that's another very typical way of analysing this. Then we slip into trial and error, and eventually we try something grand like some form of health check. But the health check is again done within a technology tower. So perhaps you go to each technology involved and say, prove to us that your kit is good. So this really is just an indication of increasing levels of desperation as they try to investigate these problems. This is the result. You have someone who's controlling the problem. I've said problem manager, but it could be anyone. He'll pass it out to some technology team. If we don't know which technology is causing the problem, we all know on this forum that networks get the blame. So it's got to be a network problem, so they'll be the first people who get it. Networks will look at their dashboards and their monitor systems, can't find any issue, pass it on to application support, who say that we've never seen this problem in any other customer, or we don't have this problem in other areas of the organization, it can't be the application, and so it bounces around. I show this slide in endless forums and in seminars and presentations, and everybody recognizes this as being an issue. So the next level, and this is the sort of level that we see, you know, people like Tony, I believe this is how he works, and you know, the really experienced guys is doing deep dive diagnostic analysis, tapping into an encyclopedic sort of knowledge of use cases. You know, I've seen this before, and typically this is the pattern of events. Now let's just go and see if that's what's happening. And we call, in Advanced 7, we call that phishing. I'll explain why we call it phishing later, but basically we're fishing around in the data looking for the cause. But the trouble with phishing is it's totally dependent on the experience of the person who's doing it. And so people who don't have the level of experience needed, they struggle deciding what's normal and what's not. They have to come up with a list of possible causes of a problem, but they don't know what the possible causes are, or if it's an unusual problem, how could they know what the possible causes are? What if the cause is transient? We haven't got the data that relates to the problem. We've got data, but we don't know if the actual problem is within it, and where should we start anyway? Given all this data that we've got, 100 gigabytes of network trace data, where do we start? So these are some of the challenges to use a phishing type of approach. So that led us to looking at some commercial aspects of a troubleshooting service. It's got to be fast. We're not an incident recovery company, but people often come to us at the very last minute, at the point where they're about to be sacked, and they want an answer, you know. So it has to come up with an answer quickly. It's obviously got to be reliable, and it's got to produce accurate results. We have to be able to do it in a consistent manner, because I'll come on to this about training staff and delivering a consistent service. We look at all sorts of applications, all sorts of technologies. Whatever method we use cannot be tied into a particular technology. It's got to be cost effective, and importantly for us, it's got to be scalable. So an experience-based troubleshooting method is not scalable. I can't go out and keep finding people with 20 years of experience who can, you know, deliver this service. So it's got to be something a bit based on something different. So what we did was, I've said 1990, we started troubleshooting problems in '89, but 1990 was the official launch of the service. What we did was we took some software engineering principles and we blended them up with standard diagnostic tools that were available in our customers to actually deliver troubleshooting results. And we were very successful at doing it, but the trouble was that when we brought someone new into the organization, they loved the techniques, but they were applying them in a totally haphazard way, and there was no framework for them to work to. So we had to introduce a process element to this, and it's the techniques and the process that make up the method that we use, which is called RPR. And using this method, what we do is we get scalable and consistent results. So this was really a big, RPR is at the very core of Advanced 7. We could only do what we do because we have this method. So the principles of RPR, just briefly, we look at one symptom at a time. That's not always common. Lots of people try to link lots of symptoms together, saying, well, these all happened about the same time, so there must be a common root cause. We don't work that way. We always focus on one symptom. We study specific symptom instances of that symptom, so we capture data for a specific instance of the symptom. We have to do this in a live environment because you can't recreate these problems in test. It's just impossible. And we have to be able to produce proof of root cause. And the objective we set ourselves was the proof has to be irrefutable. There cannot be any subjectivity about it, any form of judgment. It's got to absolutely nail it. And so that's what we set out to do. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the system, an end-to-end system, and say that at the point at which a problem occurred, this is what happened in the system. You know, there was a delay in this server, or there was an error thrown by this server over here. Whatever it is, we have to know what happens in the end-to-end system. And we have this strict rule, no phishing. We actually have this sign on the wall in our office, no phishing. And we all do it, and all of us in the office do it. Occasionally we slip into this mode where we're saying, oh, we've seen something like this before. You know, last time it was this and it was that, and then someone will remind us that actually they just usually point to the sign and say no phishing. So we're all occasionally tempted to take out our rod and reel and do a bit of phishing. So this is what we're trying to do, trying to produce this graphically. I hope you can see this, but what we have is a user response time of about 15 seconds, an intermittent slow response. And what we're trying to do is say, okay, this is where all the time was spent in that end-to-end system, and you can clearly see that 12.8 seconds was spent inside one server, so let's go and find out what's wrong with that server. So that's what we're trying to do. In fact, the type of data we collect, you can usually see what's wrong just from that first data capture. Now, this presentation was billed as network troubleshooting. Strictly, we do end-to-end system troubleshooting, but we use an awful lot of network analysis to do that. We don't very often look at the Ethernet fields, or we don't look at many of the IP fields. We do look at the TCP stuff, but most of the stuff we look at is application messages. But network tracing to do this is terrifically powerful. I mean, it's great. I don't know what we'd do without Wireshark, as I said to Gerald last week. So similarly with a fault, what we're looking for, if the user receives an error message, we want to be able to see what went wrong in the end-to-end system at that point in time. So we use this thing called definitive diagnostic data. This type of data is just data that you can directly correlate with the user's experience of the problem. So it tends to be event type data. So trace events, log events, diagnostic events. It's that type of data that we're interested in. So in looking at a process communicating with an operating system, we use things like process monitor, strace, and xperf. In an end-to-end system, we might use Fiddler, web logs, and SQL traces in a database. But by far the most popular way of doing this is to use network tracing, which is what we do as our first pass nearly every single time. I think the other thing that typifies what we do is we take a top-down approach. So when I watch videos of people diagnosing problems and looking at packets, they're very much down at the Ethernet IP and then move up to the TCP layer, so they're going up the stack. We sort of start from where the eyeballs meet the screen, and then we drill down into it, you know. So we're starting right from the very front of this system. And in fact, in this diagram, I'm actually showing application messages as requests and responses, and that could be 5 packets, 10 packets, hundreds of packets. So this just sort of demonstrates the sort of top-down approach that we use when we're analyzing. Against the typical type of approach that our customers take, one of the problems they have, first one, it's totally unpredictable. You could ask a third-line support person, how close are you to fixing this problem? And they probably haven't got much idea. They might fix it tomorrow, they might fix it in a month, but they don't know what's going to happen next. If you ask an RPR practitioner what's going to happen next, he can tell you exactly what's going to happen next. He can tell you what's going to happen in the next 3 moves. It's like a chess game, really. You know, he's always able to predict what's going to happen next. It gives us consistency. So different technology teams will have their own preferred way of analyzing a problem linked to their technology. We use an end-to-end consistent approach. In terms of speed, taking a very technology-centric approach to this, you can fix problems faster occasionally, there's no doubt about it. And you know, RPR is an escalation. You escalate to the point where you use RPR. You don't go out and use it from day one when you're looking at a problem. So other techniques can be faster, but consistently RPR has been proven to be faster by quite some measure, actually. The types of results you get, well, we deliver proof of root cause with RPR. The quality of the results, we're out to deliver irrefutable evidence, and it's got to be able to scale. We've got to be able to train people to use this. It's no good us thinking that we're going to find another Tony Fortunato, another Betty Du Bois. We're just not going to find them very quickly anyway, so it has to scale out. So guys, let me get myself off screen share. Oh no, I'm off screen share. Aha. Okay.
Well,
So that's a brief jog through.
The process is always is something people should come up with and stick with. People tend to be so random, you know, and if you ask most network managers, they say we're firefighters. You know, yeah. And it's all prioritized based upon the level of management that calls you up. And unfortunately, I would say 90+% of the time there is no process. So when you come in and you teach people a basic fundamental process, that's huge. And of course, they can go out and get Wireshark. They can go on Love My Tool or in Google, and they can find specific usability focus. Yeah, that's really cool. And go ahead.
Go on, carry on. Sorry. All I was going to say was that when you're in an incident recovery situation, RPR is not very practical because you have to sit and consider what you're going to do. You have to come up with a plan. So this isn't an incident recovery technique. And, you know, as you say, in an incident situation, technical support staff are under terrific pressure to just do something as quickly as possible. So this definitely isn't intended for that.
No.
I think in terms of the process, because process sometimes scares technical people, they think it's just bureaucracy. Just for us, the process is a way of us ensuring that we follow the principles of RPR. When you get practiced at it, you don't have to slavishly follow the process. as long as you apply the principles. And it's when you don't apply the principles that it tends to go wrong. So we have people who join us, we train them, they'll go out, sometimes they'll make a mistake, and typically it will be because they haven't followed the process and they've tried to skip a step and it hasn't worked. So it works for us, and it instills a level of discipline into the whole investigation, you know. And of course, problem managers love it because it gives them some level of control. At least they know what's going to happen next.
Well, whereas, yeah, I mean, anytime you can do,
got no idea.
Yeah, anytime you can do forensics, you know, forensically sound processes, even if it's looking at layer 2 and 3 and doing just baseline, it's a fundamental process. And you mentioned actually in there as part of the process repeatability. You know, you want irrefutable evidence. That's what we call forensically sound in my world. You know, and that's you want to be able to point to and say, hey, because what's the first problem you run into in a corporate situation? The finger pointing. It's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it must be your fault. No, it's your fault. And one of the first things you got to do is stop that and say, let's eliminate those dimensions or those parts until we find where it's at, and then once we find what domain it's in, then we can work on it all together.
Yeah,
that's a major problem I run into.
Yeah. I noticed that John Gerber is watching, and so if you look at your Q&A panel, he says looks great. Can you see, Paul? Can you see the Q&A panel?
I might not have it switched on. Let me just check.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, yep. Okay.
So he has a question. Just wanted you to say what RPR stands for.
It's rapid problem resolution. When we started out, we were the method encompassed some areas of problem management actually, and so over time, once we realised that ITIL already covered this and we were just reinventing the wheel, we dropped some of the aspects of RPR. So the rapid problem resolution, it's really rapid root cause and identification, really. It has a level of resolution and checking the resolution and things like that in the process. But it's really about identifying root cause, technical root cause, you know, literally what is happening in the system when the problem occurs. And so resolution mainly is done by the in-house team. So if we go in and help a team investigate a problem, all we're really doing is giving them visibility. We show them exactly what's going wrong, and usually the in-house team will immediately come up with a fix. We do sometimes help with determining the fix, but mainly that's not needed. Yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a roundabout way of saying rapid problem resolution, John. Sorry.
I was going to also note that, yeah, you actually have a pretty cool paper on network trace analysis strategies.
Yeah.
That was written by Advanced 7. And I've actually read that several times and pointed people to that because it does really drag some things in. And next article you write, maybe you should attach that on Love My Tool, so or that or one of your other papers like that, because that's really a really fundamental and important.
Well, that's a great link into another thing I was going to tell you, which is that we've recently been working on a generalized network trace analysis procedure. So this is a procedure that you can follow that will help you analyze any trace and come up with the answers. We've been testing it against various projects that we've been working on, and we're gradually refining it, but we're about to put it live actually on a website, and I'll certainly make sure that the Love My Tool community have visibility of that, because it would be great to get extra input anyway, and because one of the things we've been asked, we teach RPR foundation training in a classroom, and we do teach lots of techniques, but sometimes people say to us, well, how do we analyze network traces? Now, we go through some examples in the classroom, but we don't, to some extent, we leave these people to themselves and try and let them figure out how do you analyze a network trace. Well, this procedure now is giving them the tools they need to actually help them do that work. So this is part of a larger project inside Advanced 7 to improve the information that we're disseminating in the industry.
Now, do you use Wireshark as your fundamental trace visualization tool in your classes or in your papers?
Yeah, we do. Very occasionally we use Network Monitor, but by far it's almost always Wireshark.
I'll definitely make sure that Gerald gets this and can post it on a link or something on Wireshark work.
Okay.
Anything that people can use to learn, even the most fundamental things. Gerald and I used to always jokingly say that, unfortunately, we feel that 95% of the people that are out there doing analysis work find it difficult to even do TCP/IP, understand TCP/IP interchange, and so anything we can do to help support that. I know Laura Chappell has a great curriculum for that.
Yes, she does. Yeah.
And but it'd be great to put this up there as supportive documentation. So let me know when it's ready.
Okay. I mean, the stuff that we're producing is not really overlapping much with Laura because we don't do a great deal of teaching down at the lower layers of the TCP/IP stack, and also we don't do much on the use of Wireshark itself. In fact, we were talking in the office today, and we realised just how what the limited subset of functionality that we use is. You know, we really all could do with brushing up our Wireshark skills, quite honestly.
So, Paul, how many other people are involved with Advanced 7?
There are 8 of us.
Wow.
So it's only a small company. We've had a few developments. The reason I mentioned before the show that we've got a visitor from Toronto. We have a supplier of network equipment who wants to incorporate our material into their training material. I'll later on, once we get a bit further down the line, I'll tell you more about this. But it's quite exciting time for us at the moment because we seem to be getting some true industry recognition, which we've struggled with in the past because people just see us as a bit quirky, I guess.
I'm just throwing it out there to see if it makes sense. But do you think that it would make sense in the future to have a special show like the round table with your other colleagues?
You could certainly do it. I work with a great bunch of guys. This bunch I've got.
So I mean, we could even I don't know, we do that once a month or once every other month, but it could be just an Advanced 7 round table discussion. I'm sure your other colleagues would be. I mean, sometimes when you get people together, they go crazy, don't they?
Yeah.
Especially when we do the show, you're drinking hours.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, we could do it from a local pub.
Yeah.
Good internet access in a local pub. We're going to the.
I think it would be. Well, Tim, what do you think?
Well, the only problem I have with that is I can't get some Murphy's or Guinness over here that's really good. Right off the tap, with a little beard on it, or what we used to call blonde-headed lady. Yeah. I think that'd be great to have a round table and we could pull Tony in.
I think it would be great. I think it would be great. Well, let's close the show while we're still ahead. Any last comment, Paul? I really enjoyed that. I'm gonna either go through some of your previous writing or ask you to write up maybe a paragraph or two to put it in the show description because like we were talking before, the description is very important because it makes the show more searchable. So that's my self-assigned homework assignment. So why don't just give us your last comment and then we'll let Tim close the show.
Okay. The one thing I would like to get across, and I'm a bit of an evangelist on this, the stuff that Advanced 7 does you out there who are watching this, you could do it. Believe me, there is no magic, no special skill involved here. It takes some practice, but everybody who watches this show could do what we do and take the approach. There's a lot of people around who believe that troubleshooters are born and you can't train them. You can train them, and I'm convinced, and I'm going to prove it because I'm going to do my best, my very best, to produce information and resources that people can use so that they can go and troubleshoot problems. So if I want to leave with one message, and it doesn't mean that experience isn't important. This is all about standing on the shoulders of giants. We need to.
Paul,
we need to go further.
Paul, I attended a one-day Zen meditation course on Sunday. That's exactly what he said when we finished. Word by word, it's exactly what you said. It's all about you. There's no magic in this. It's a lot of practice, a lot of discipline. You are definitely standing on the shoulder of giants. Definitely. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Tim, why don't you close the show for us?
Great. Well, Paul, thank you. That was really great. And people do need to know you can take small steps. No one can, swallow the whole iceberg, but if you chip it up a little bit, you can have some great drinks and cold drinks out of it. Back to drinking again. Hell yes. Even though I don't, but it'd be fun. But it really is. It's really, if people will take small steps, and I think that people like, I knew Betty when she started, I knew Tony when he started, I knew Chris when he started. Heck, I even knew Gerald when he started. And if you look at even the development of Ethereal, then Wireshark, which that was the original name, it started out really small. Started out really focused, but very low level, and it grew. And that's the way we have to grow education. People get out of college and think they know things. And I explained to them that really that's not what college is about. In college, we teach you how to learn if we're successful. Yeah. And then once you leave college, then you go and learn what you need to apply.
That's exactly right, Tim. And one word that Paul used during his presentation was really the word that we used. I taught at university for 9 years, and the word that he used was called generalize. How do you generalize a problem so that there's some relationship between your experience? And so that's exactly what we call it generalization, right? How do you take a problem and then say that it represents this, and this is just a subset of that bigger thing. So anyway, we ran over time. Thank you, Paul, again. Paul doesn't only teach network troubleshooting; he teaches network troubleshooting with style.
With Zen.
With Zen. Okay. All right. We'll see you next week, and we're going back to our SharkFest theme again, right, Tim? We're interviewing Janice from who's the den mother of SharkFest. So we're excited about it. Yeah.
She's Mother SharkFest. Trust me.
Yes. All right.
And Chris Greer will be on here talking about his newbies class.
Okay, so we need to schedule that. Okay, thank you. Thanks everybody, and go out there and be good.